a right to food
Sure.
type thing.
Okay, so the recording is set up here. Shoot. So what I've given you is I contacted those towns. That's what the spreadsheet is. And many of them don't have a minimum square footage to occupy a dwelling. The only one that I found that does so far is 500 square feet, and that's Minot. I did ask, oftentimes I asked why, and he said, well, they don't know. Nobody knows.
What about Poland? It says Poland, yes, under 700 square feet. It must be attached.
It must be, yep. So it must be under 700 square feet and
Similar
it
to
must
what
be
we had,
attached.
right,
Yeah.
Initially.
And with Poland, the total is for both units. It can't be cover more than 15%.
Their impervious lot coverage total combined, whatever's on the lot, cannot be more than 15%.
What's the logic behind that? Those kind of restrictions? There really isn't any.
There is in big cities
Right,
because of impervious structures,
right.
but for country settings, it's a lot of ground here
Yeah, I
to
know,
be
'cause-
pervious.
Right,
So there's that. Topsum, they do have a minimum. Detached dwelling is 750 feet minimum. Attached is 500 square feet minimum. And no one knows why. And they're going through the process right now of changing that. So Topsum will likely change their minimum square
And
foot.
it's minimum, not maximum.
That's correct. For occupancy of a dwelling.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So really, it's all over the
All
board.
over the place.
So if it's all over the board, you wonder why. There's plenty of places that don't have it. They don't seem to be in trouble. Yeah. And the other thing I gave, so I did give you the subcommittee, the notes from back. So I only have 2, October and August. We didn't meet in September because we didn't get that other thing. So that's that. And I want to get, this time I want to say, I want to spell out the suggestions, suggested recommendations to the planning board and put those down here. So if we have some, and do we have some already?
We did.
Or not?
Yeah,
did.
So,
we did.
okay.
We do.
Yeah.
We did.
So I want to have those highlighted, just so we
I know
know.
I wrote some of them
and
in
we don't.
here.
Carrying a bag.
Yeah, I know, me too. When did we start this in July? Was it July?
Start what?
August.
The subcommittee meeting, was it August?
I think it was August.
Okay, well, hold on. May, the subcommittee meeting was postponed.
Then we had
And
one
then
in,
August, yeah.
June, but you didn't come to it because of the family. emergency.
Let's see.
We had set up definitions for what an ADU and a tiny house and a 2-family.
And campsite, I think, too, right? It's one of
So the question is, are they acceptable for what we had come up with?
I wrote it in here.
You bring your notebook to every, you guys bring your notebooks, yes? Yeah. Okay, good.
Yeah, I can't rely on my brain to remember everything, so.
How old are you?
Ah,
How old are you?
42.
Wait till you get to 55.
Oh, and you two, yeah, I'm older than both of you. The old lady in the room.
Okay.
So do we have something specific that you want me to put under that so far? Suggest your recommendation.
We were going to look into with the attorney or somebody legal, the difference between a multi-dwelling because of the way ours and a ADU.
Yeah, we have to define that.
We have to define that, and what we would come up with was acceptable.
Okay.
Because wasn't our recommendation that ADUs did not have to be attached? Was that it?
That was one, and the other thing was that the front door didn't have to be on the side or the back. That it could be. And right now, for it to be considered an ADU, it has to be on the side or the back. Of the
It cannot be
be
on
on
the
the
front.
front. But I think the first thing we'd have to do to be able to figure out an ADU versus a two-family is define like what those two are, right?
Yeah. You were gonna look and see if there were specific legal definitions that you.
Okay, so I didn't do that. I didn't have that in my notes to do, so I didn't do it. So I can't remember that stuff. So you want me to put that in here?
If you would, please. Because those definitions will determine what direction we can or can't go.
And in our last meeting, we also talked about throwing out the question of, can we have a tiny house and an attached ADU? Like if we do that, that was another thing.
Do I need to ask that for MMA legal as well? Okay, so ask legal about difference between what? Help me here.
ADU, well, there were a couple different ones, 80 tiny home ADU and two families, right?
Yeah.
Because we had what's the difference between definition around?
Well,
like-
I don't know that we need to ask them. We just need to come up with a definition that you want to put in here,
Right,
right? So we need to decide what we're going to consider an ADU is. What is an ADU? Because an ADU is a tiny house is an ADU.
Well, and that was the thing.
All
about-
ADUs are not tiny houses.
right.
Could it,
So if if that's the case and a tiny house is considered an ADU, then technically speaking, ADUs should be detached or attached, right? So that would be, I guess, one of our recommendations is to modify ADUs to indicate that it could be attached or detached.
Okay, so ADUs do not have to be attached. It can, or in a more positive note, ADUs can be attached or detached. Do you want to specify? I mean, when I talk to people about ADUs, I always stress that it's an accessory. It has to be it has to be less than the primary.
Correct.
Dwelling
That's one
unit.
thing that we also recommended,
Yeah.
is the ADU has to be smaller than the primary residence.
but not necessarily attached? The other question that Shannon brought up was, if you have a building that has an ADU on it, and you have acreage, can you have a tiny, based on what the statute that went into place says, can they
That's something
find
you were
an
supposed to look
additional
into.
That's,
ADU
well,
in a
that's
tiny
what
home there?
Topsom has. So if it's attached, no additional road frontage is required or area. If it's detached, it must comply with all particular zoning square footage and road frontage requirements, as if it were another dwelling.
But we don't have to have it that way, right? We could
You
have it
don't, but that's,
however
and
we want.
that is what Chelsea has as well. You can have two in Chelsea. After two, you need a half acre for every tiny house.
And does it then become considered a subdivision?
It would, it would, and you can't do that. So those laws cover all that. So, but they said you can have two, yeah, you're right. So they didn't think of that in Chelsea. If you do two and you have a primary building, you've just created a subdivision, so they have to go through subdivision review. So that's true. But they're saying you also need a half acre extra. You don't need extra road frontage. You can use the same road frontage and have accessory dwelling units on that lot.
Even if
but-
it's detached, you're saying.
Detached,
Okay.
yep. In Chelsea, they allow detached accessory dwelling units. But after two, you have to have an extra half acre for every additional tiny house. So but then they are restricted. They would have to go through subdivision law because that's main state law. You can't subvert that.
You know what my question is if you've got a house with an ADU already attached, to it, and you add a tiny house.
It's still a dwelling. Yeah, that would be three. So you automatically fall into subdivision.
Subdivision, that,
Yeah.
okay.
So then, as far as the definition of like a two-family home, would we say a two-family is something in which, well, how would you do that? There's no connecting door? Is that what we said before? There's no connecting door connecting the two places.
Mhm.
For it to be an attached ADU, it would have to have a connecting door.
Mhm.
So that would really be. the
It has
definition.
to now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Okay,
mean,
so-
that's in my mind, it does, but I would spell that out. So an attached ADU must have, right? A connecting door between the two dwelling spaces. So last time we did say that we want to look at use tables related to housing and look Portland and other info.
Here's a good wording for it that we might just want to use. Just says two-family dwelling is defined as a building constructed on a single lot that is designed for and contains two single-family dwelling units entirely under one roof that are completely separated from each other by one dividing partition. And we could probably get rid of the one dividing partition, but we could just leverage that. Concerns.
So that's what's the name of that again? A
Says,
two-family?
yep, two-family dwelling. Building constructed on a single lot. That is designed for and contains two. Single-family dwelling units. Entirely under one roof. They're completely separated from each other. And then we should probably just say by at least one dividing partition, probably.
Each other by,
Each other by at least one dividing partition. But to be clear, where it does say dwelling units entirely under one roof, if you have varying roofs or a number of
roof
roofs,
lines.
yeah, something to that, because I mean, can that be considered, well, the roofs have to be connected,
You're getting into crap now.
I'm just saying, like, do
So
we
how
need
do
to?
how do we define that out?
Maybe we just get rid of the under one roof piece, right? And just leave it as that are completely separated from each other by at least one dividing partition.
I think we should do that because the roof thing could really. screw
Yeah,
things
I
up.
see that being an issue.
Contains two single-family units that are completely separated from each other by at least one dividing wall partition.
Yep.
So a two-family dwelling is a building constructed on a single lot that is designed for and contains two single-family units that are completely separated from each other by at least one dividing partition.
Yep.
Should we say a two-family dwelling, comma, duplex
Are they one and
to
the
include
same?
it? Do you want to make them the same?
No, why not? Well, let's just make sure we don't already have that stuff. Okay. Oh, well, it does have a two-family dwelling in here, it's under dwelling, that's probably why we couldn't find it. A building containing only two dwelling units for occupation by not more than two families. So we're modifying that definition under dwelling.
So what's it? I don't find duplex even in this document.
135.
How's
the
it spelled?
definition.
How's it spelled?
It's dwelling, it's under dwelling, two family. So they have dwelling.
But
as-
does it actually have the word duplex?
No, it doesn't. So we
Okay.
probably just modify it to include duplex on it.
Yeah, there are a million dwellings in there, but I can't really search it. So there's no duplex defined in there.
Nope.
There you go.
No, but I feel like I've read it in the code where it's specifically called out duplex. Did you
In
see it
the
at all?
code.
It's not in our ordinance.
None of them?
How do you spell it?
Yeah, DUPLEX.
Duplex. It is not in it is not in that document.
Okay.
There's no duplex. There's no DEU. There's no
that would-
DUE.
it would have-
Yeah.
I think it's in the ordinance. It's two-family.
Yep.
Yeah, so it doesn't even say the word duplex. So that's fine if we define it. If
Yeah,
we
just
say
put 'em all-
a two
all
unit is a
encompassing.
duplex.
Yep.
It's not a two family, it's a
Two
duplex.
family
No, it's a duplex. That's
and-
what,
In parentheses,
Yeah.
duplex. So we're basically modifying the two family.
So what are we going to require for lot size and roof?
are you?
Do we have to?
Minimum, you could do the minimum. Minimum for that zone.
Ah, that still needs to be looked at. Zones as a whole needs to change.
You could do the minimum lot size. Have I talked to you guys about I'm not going to now, but just questioning about the codification yet?
Yep.
I did. It started. You know that?
Oh, it has. Oh, yes, you did say that.
Yep.
I'm excited about that.
Yep. So they'll have by December 6th is their target date to have the organization ready for us to review.
Oh, really?
When is it going to be ready by?
The organization structure
Yeah.
is
So-
December 6th.
Oh, okay. Cool.
So is it going to have chapter, section, blah, blah? What is this? You just found what? What about it? What is it? Right. Right. So two family, we're just going to add in there some stuff. Right?
Yep. You're probably working on a computer all day. You can't read your handwriting when you're writing stuff.
Okay, it's not just me. I'm like
No,
Tony,
oh,
major
it's so
brain.
bad. Okay. So when you're looking at those definitions, right? There's a dwelling unit and then there is accessory dwelling unit.
Okay.
So how are they different? Because to me, it almost seems like they're one and the same. So dwelling unit saying a room or suite of rooms used by a family as a habitation which is separate from other such rooms or suites of rooms and which contains independent living, cooking, sleeping, bathing, and sanitary facilities. Technically, that could be an ADU, right?
Yes.
And then accessory dwelling unit just as a separate living unit within a single family home that meets the requirements of Article 4, Section 8 of this ordinance.
Which is what?
That's what I'm looking.
Is that the definition of
I
the
think so.
dwelling unit?
To look at that codification done now, seriously.
It's
The
gonna be
searching process
a
will be so
blessing,
much
and I think a
easier.
curse, because all of our really bad flaws are gonna become apparent.
That's okay. Well, it's a good opportunity for us to go through this stuff, right?
And I have some other news for you today too. When I
Huh?
do, I have some other news when we get to our CEO updates. You need to look at it with an open mind
Gosh.
because, yeah, yeah, because it's just so complicated right now.
Or Section 8, right?
What it says.
So dwelling unit is in our land use ordinance 105 times. Wow.
I know, I'm like, I know I separated this out right. Okay. that's
Article
2.
4 starts on 35.
Need to do better with like that little tabs here because I've looked at it before. Let's just look at it. Oh. We did have also under the recommendations, now that I'm looking from these notes, under Article 4, Section 5, 2E. This is for campsites. It was the written sewage disposal plan describing the proposed method and location of sewage disposal must be required for each campsite. It must be approved by local plumbing inspector. Says where disposal is offsite, written authorization from the receiving facility of landowner is required. We had indicated we wanted 7 days to produce that written statement.
So what is that section under though?
It is Section 5, 2E. 7 days to produce. Sorry, I'm off on a tangent there, but
Proof of sewer disposal?
yeah, 7 days. It's already in there. We just
Yeah.
need to add that they have 7 days to produce. And then, And then we also added 52G, which just indicates subject to violation. So that's an addition in that section.
What is subject to violation?
Yep.
Violation section?
Yes.
Of the Mechanic Falls land use.
Yeah, whatever your normal thing is. Did you find it? That one?
No, it goes from 7 to 9. Section 8 is like, it's gone.
Here's multifamily development. Subdivision. Oh, section 8, here it is, 119, 8B. We should actually make a reference to that. So it's easier. Well, section 8, yeah.
What is this about?
Accessory dwelling units, because when we're looking at that, units must be attached to the single family structure. Accessory dwelling units are not allowed in detached accessory structures. So that's where we're gonna have to make that change. So let's note that. That's Article 4. Section 8. You don't have page 119? Oh, yours is different.
Do you have the old version?
I thought we got the new one.
Well, do you guys have the reformatted one that's
We do,
actually
from
online?
March 1st.
Oh,
Actually, no, there's different pages now. There are different pages now because the pages weren't lined up.
Oh,
So I haven't printed out another.
okay.
So, but if it's a section, you're good.
It's right.
If you say it by page, what are we looking at?
Okay, so hold on.
What's a word that I can search for?
Creation of accessory.
Creation, I bet 21 creation.
Do
of a single-
creation of, and then ACC.
Creation of accessory dwellings.
Yep,
That's on page 119.
yep. That's what I have. So section, Article 4, section 8. And then it is number 1.
B1.
Yep, B, sorry, correct. 1. That will need to be modified to remove that last sentence. Accessory dwelling units are not allowed in detached accessory structures.
The last sentence.
Did you find it?
No, my to do with that gives me building law.
Are you not on 119? Are you around there?
Yeah,
Procedure, non-conforming. Yeah, it like completely skips it.
yeah.
So you might want a fresh version
Yeah.
and all your writing will go away.
Yeah, it's just like gone, not even in here.
It's not very big. I think that's odd that you're just missing that one though. And then are we saying we'll allow, so are we saying that we'd also allow for accessory dwelling units? Are we putting a restriction on how many?
Well,
I
and
think you
that
should-
was my question.
Well-
Does it become a subdivision?
It will. Because doesn't matter if you're splitting the lot or adding a dwelling. If you have 3 or more dwellings, it is a subdivision.
Okay, so after,
But
I
you
have
could
it-
spell it out. I mean,
if
it's
I
no
have
harm
it-
in saying that.
So they
But you
understand.
can't have any more than you can't. You
if
can't
I have
add.
an attached one and I have a detached one, if say a tiny home, they have attached ADU and I have a tiny home, which is also an ADU, then that's considered a subdivision?
It is considered a subdivision because they're dwellings. A dwelling and lot are interchangeable with subdivision law.
Even if the deeds for all of them are in the same person's name?
It doesn't matter with a
Doesn't-
dwelling. You can put eight houses and you've created an illegal subdivision.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then if that's the case, then to spell it out, we'd also want to do Article 4, Section 8.
What am I doing with, I'm doing Article 4, Section 8B1, modified to move the last sentence.
Correct. So that one's done. Because that's just
So any-
eliminating, saying that they are
Are
not allowed to be
allowed.
detached. So then Article 4, Section 8B3, right now it says only one accessory dwelling unit is permitted per lot. So adding a statement there to say any additional accessory dwelling units would then be required to comply with subdivision ordinance.
Any ADUs more than,
Well, you could just say any additional, right? Because anything above and beyond the one is gonna be subject to subdivision standards or whatever you wanna call it.
any additional ADUs would be subject to subdivision law.
Yep.
And that's
Yeah.
Article 4. Or Section 8B3.
8B3, correct.
So we're striking the only one accessory dwelling unit is permitted.
No, we're
per
leaving
lot,
that on. We're
and
just
we're
adding,
More will require.
Yeah.
Subdivision.
so then,
And my other question to you, Mr. Plummer, is number 4, the no accessory dwelling unit is permitted where a variance is required. Doesn't the state say we have to now?
No, the state says you can't, if a single family home will not be allowed there, if they need a variance for a single family home, it won't be allowed there.
Oh, for the single family home, not for the,
Well, the law says that if you will allow a single family home there, you will by rule allow a tiny house. But if a single family home needs a variance, then you do not, that is not allowed there. So that's opening up a can of worms. I would say,
no,
I
I'm
would,
talking about for an accessory dwelling unit, I'm sorry.
no,
Instead
I
of-
understand what you're saying. But if you need a variance, if you need a variance, then a single family home would not be allowed there by
I
rule.
thought under ADA rules, it now said that we were not allowed to deny if somebody wanted to put an ADU on. You would have to.
If a single family home is allowed there. If it's not, and they need a variance for it, then it's not really allowed there.
I
It
see.
doesn't have the space requirement.
And, yeah, and
So
not-
now you're gonna put 2 on there. I'm gonna say no to that.
Okay, I see what you're saying now.
So, yeah,
It wasn't clicking for a moment.
but, yeah,
under the definitions on 135, we just need to probably modify ADU, accessory dwelling unit, to add that additional piece where, if attached, must include, like, must be attached with a door or something to that effect, you know what I mean? Make it so that it's, or we don't need to because, we kind of do, right? Make it clear.
making it more clear than less clear, because if they go to one place and don't go to the other place, they don't see that. So we want to make it
Right.
clear.
So,
So under
page-
definitions, what
Yep,
page is it?
Page
Where?
135, under dwelling,
Add what?
under accessory dwelling unit, and I don't know if we want to put in parentheses ADU, just to keep it consistent. We just need to add something to it that indicates, because right now it just says a separate living unit within a single family home that meets the requirements of Article 4, Section 8 of this ordinance. So maybe we say a separate living unit attached via entryway or entry point to a single family home, right? Would that make sense?
No, because a tiny home can't be attached.
Or, yeah, and then we can add to it or detached,
Okay.
or it could be detached with a
Attached
separate.
by an entry door. So we can get this down and we don't have to have it perfect. You can go over these things and see if that makes sense.
Okay, we got a good list right now, though.
Definitions, page 135, dwelling, add under ADU attached by an entry door. Must be attached? Must be.
Must be attached by an entry door or detached.
An attached ADU must be
Yeah,
connected?
yeah.
Must be connected by an entry door between the two units.
Yeah.
By an entry door between the two units.
And with the unattached one, are we gonna have the maximum? Because this has been an issue that's come up in the past, is maximum will only be so many square feet.
We
Right.
don't have a max.
How are you going to pick that? Yeah, we don't.
Yeah.
We
Well, that's my
w-
question.
we don't have a max now because it
Our
was
max-
600, but it's gone.
Yeah, so our max is that,
Smaller than the
yeah, it has to be
primary.
smaller than the primary, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was definitely what we changed it to.
Yep. Must be smaller than primary residence.
So then with that said,
And-
do we make the recommendation to also eliminate the minimum? Because technically a tiny house is considered an ADU, right? So let's get rid of that too.
Yeah, and lots of places don't have that.
Must be attached or allowed to be detached ADU as long as smaller than primary unit. And get rid of the minimums and the maximums altogether.
Delete minimum size of a dwelling.
Mhm.
Yep.
And
we-
then
Do we know
just,
what page that is?
As long as smaller than primary. unit.
I'm looking right now. Just to be clear, too, tiny house has its own definition as defined by the state, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we will never say a tiny house is a camper or something like that, right?
We can put that definition in there. We can take the definition right out of the state.
Yeah, can we add that
Definition,
just
if you
to be
want.
very clear? I think we have
So
the
that's
definition.
back to the other one, the 600 feet. Oh, no, that's not it. The 600 square feet size of dwelling is on page 105.
Okay.
That's under general, I think. It's K, size of dwelling. So that's under the general. It's under building code, section 6 building code,
Hold on, you said 105?
page 105 or 105-ish. Because I'm looking at the online version, which is the official one. Those pages are going to be a little different.
105, let's go back. 105 brings me to the marijuana policy.
You should see letters and lots of small little things. HIJK.
Wait.
I'm not finding mine.
I know I've seen it. It's in there somewhere. In the beginning? Oh, wait, hold on.
Definitely on page 105.
Not even close.
Really?
No.
I'm looking right at it. Size of dwelling. What do you have the section 6? Is that on page 103?
Nope, not for me, it isn't.
Wow.
Yep, 103 is section 6 for me.
Okay.
For me, section 6 is manufactured home, or
Plumbing,
page 103
building.
is manufactured
So
home.
section 6 building code should be on 103,
Mine's on
103-ish.
100.
That's close enough. So
Minimum
go down
construction.
to
What's that?
K.
Okay,
Okay,
means of, size of dwelling, oh, okay,
Okay.
all right,
you find it,
yes.
Paula?
My case was size of dwelling.
Yes.
Single
Yep.
family dwelling in any seasonal camp occupied.
All right, so that's what, Article 4.
So if we
Article
get rid of
4,
that whole thing,
Section 6.
does it matter if a seasonal camp is smaller than 600 square feet? I don't think so.
No, because tiny homes have to be allowed and they're less than 600 square
Yeah.
feet. So that whole thing could be struck.
I think everything there, each single family dwelling in any seasonal camp occupied more than 3 months. We don't care about that. Constructed or located in Mechanic Falls must have minimum gross floor area of 600 square feet. So just so you know, I have now licensed a septic system, a permanent septic system for Rocky and his camper.
You did, cool.
Yeah, he got a design and I've licensed it. He hasn't picked it up. He needs to get it installed before it gets cold or I'm going to kick him out.
Mhm.
Actually, I can't kick him out because he's,
Yeah, we know what you're saying.
Yeah.
So we're gonna strike K from the
Yep.
ordinance altogether, size of dwelling. Am I correct?
Yep.
Is that a section? Was that a
Yeah, it's section, it's Article 4, Section 6K.
Article 4, Section 6, okay?
Section 6 building code, letter K.
I feel like it's in there someplace else though too, for some reason.
It is.
Under accessory dwelling unit, I'm pretty sure.
So if people ask, there are many towns that don't have that size, do not have that size restriction, period. Right?
Yep.
And there's a law now that says you must have allow tiny houses. And we've got about 10 minutes to 6.
Wow,
What are you guys on right now?
I'm just looking through the ordinance real quick for the ADUs, just to make sure there's nothing that we're missing that needs to either be eliminated or modified.
So there are 37 instances of ADU. No, that's adult business establishment, so that doesn't. But
Oh, okay, yep, section, Article 4. Section 8. B. 6. Needs to be removed. That is saying after completion, the accessory dwelling unit must have at least 300 square feet of floor area.
there's at least one other two, other than that.
one of the two, what do you mean?
There's another one that talks about floor area as well.
Yep. So I found that one. I only find 300, at least 300 cubic feet of enclosed tenant storage facility must be conveniently provided near each mobile home lot. So check that out. This is an ordinance. Storage, at least 300 cubic feet of enclosed tenant storage facility must be conveniently provided on or near each mobile home lot for the storage of materials and equipment. Did you know that that's a rule?
Yeah,
That does not happen on any of our mobile home parks.
I know.
And when I mentioned that, they said, "What? 300 cubic feet?
Why?
Cubic feet, but that's not square feet."
For mobile home.
Per mobile home.
Now, I don't know who want to touch this here, but now that you brought up trailers, that's another thing. We have some minimum allowed for trailer square footage too.
Leave that alone. That's manufactured housing. We'll deal with that a different time.
I didn't know if you realized that, if you wanted to go to that can of worms. Wow.
See, that's interesting too. So the last piece on the accessory dwelling units, number 12 references that it has to conform to Article 4, Section 7 rental housing standards, but just reading through all of that area, it's saying a multiple dwelling is any dwelling containing more than 3 dwelling units. So wouldn't that actually be more than 2?
That's per building in a building, a multi-building dwelling unit. So that's a multi-unit.
Like an apartment.
That's no, you can't have more than 4 in Mechanic Falls. So between 3 and 4 is a multi-unit.
Right, so that would be my point, because this is saying more than 3. So that means you can have 3 and it's okay,
In one building,
right?
in one building, yes. So, I see where you're getting at.
So it just needs to be changed to say more than 2, right? Any dwelling containing more than 2 dwelling units is considered a
Well,
multiple
that's what
dwelling.
I was asking, in one building. It's not
I get
If
you
it's
now.
all attached,
So that's our definition, though. That's Mechanic Falls definition of a multi-unit. Is no more than 4 and more than 3. So three or more. It's 3
it
or
needs
more
to
or
be
4.
3 or more, but that's what I'm saying is it doesn't say 3 or more, it says more than 3, which means 4 or more. So what about a unit that has 3, a dwelling that has 3 units? What does that fall under? What would be the definition of that? Because it's not a 2-family. And it's technically, by this definition, it's not a multiple dwelling.
That's what I was asking. And is it considered?
Can we just change it to say more than 2?
So what does that change? So now I'm back to thinking about the accessory dwelling units and multi-units. If they have a multi-unit with 3, if they have a multi-unit, but that's dwellings.
Well, what is the definition?
So
say?
I don't know if a multi-unit, because technically that is a subdivision in those buildings. If you have 3 or more dwellings, and those are, and condos
so
have
that-
to be,
It
go
just
through
needs to be-
subdivision
That needs to
rules.
be changed because even multi-family dwellings, it says a building containing 3 or 4 dwelling units.
Yep.
So we need to change that one.
And so tell me
area.
where that is.
It's Article 4, Section 7.
hold on.
Number
Article
15.
4, Section 7.
Yep.
Number what?
Number
15.
15.
Number 15.
And we just need to say, change it to say containing more than 2 dwelling units.
Okay. Change to containing more than 2 dwelling units.
And then it falls in line with the definition too, so.
But I don't know about that. I don't know the answer to that. I'd have to ask someone about subdivision. And because I know they've talked about this, they've talked about condos and subdivisions. They've definitely talked about that. So, hello. How are you? Oh, absolutely.
It's really
You're-
interesting.
You're on
Topic,
candid
you know,
camera.
Lou.
You're on camera, just so you know.
Yeah, which actually reading through the definition even of that is still very interesting because it's saying designed exclusively for residential use and occupancy by 3 or more families living independently of one another with the number of families not exceeding the number of dwelling units. Why does that matter? You could have 2 families living in one unit. Why would that make a difference? So it's basically saying you can have a multi.
There's no way to check that. There's
That's
no
my
way to
point.
check
It's like,
that.
how do you enforce that?
Yeah.
You get mail. You know?
Yeah.
You have mail lady spy, right?
Yeah, right. Seriously.
And that's
That's a lot of time on
that's
someone's
another
hands. That's not worth it.
That's another thing Topsom said. They read me a few lines and they said, but I can tell you right now, there's nothing about that you can enforce.
Right.
So they have specifics about family members and all that kind of stuff. There's nothing that's going to be changed
And
when
why
they
would you?
adjust
I mean,
theirs.
why would you
Yeah.
really, right?
Now, would this be a good time to take and change the lot size requirements for lots that have water and or sewer? To shrink it for the lot size needed to be able to do anything?
You could talk about it.
For
You
the use
could.
table, you mean?
Well, right now we have 80,000 square feet. Isn't it 80,000 square feet?
There are a bunch of different sizes.
But they're
It's the
lots.
road frontage that
Yeah.
is the issue. You can have water and sewer, but if you're in the wrong district, the road frontage is like.
Ridiculous.
Right.
Which is 250.
It's a misuse of supplies and demands that are supported by the town.
It's kind of disappointing though, too, because quite honestly, like if you consider our zones, like some of these areas, like I outlined, for example, it's in a rural district, but I live across from a trailer park, you know what I mean? So I live across from a trailer park. It's pretty well built up. It's not, my property is not made for agricultural purposes. It's, just over an acre. So to me, that's more general res. So in that situation, in the next 3 houses down from me, it's kind of 3, 4 houses down from me, it's all the same way. It's not until it hits Mrs. Williams' property that it really should be rural from there, and that's where, what we are trying to accomplish eventually. We're lucky because we have Woodland Road behind us, because if we didn't have Woodland Road, we would have been cut off because of that minimum road frontage, because we're in the rural.
So right now, minimum land area, it depends on whether you have public sewer or without public sewer. With or without public sewer, there we go. Our rural development zone is 80,000 square feet. General residential is 20,000 square feet. Downtown business is 10,000 square feet. All the rest are 20,000 square feet with sewer. It's larger without sewer.
Yeah, and that was another thing too, that I think we were close to like not being able to.
Because you have to, the state regulation is 20,000 square feet if you need a septic system. So you can't go less than that.
Right.
But if we have downtown business, that's 10,000 square feet because they have public sewer. So they are not bound to the requirement of having 20,000, because 20,000 is the average size of a leach field, or was
Right.
years ago.
Well, that's what we're.
But it's
looking.
still a law.
We're looking to get the town to extend the sewer down to our house,
Yeah.
because it literally ends right at the McNally's right before
Yeah.
us.
So
Close
it
next.
is 6
is.
o'clock, so we do need to finish up.
Okay, I think you've got a nice good little to-do list here to add to our next meeting, I guess.
So we didn't look at the use tables, so we'll keep that on there for next time. And I need to contact, ask legal about the difference between an ADU and what.
And tomorrow I'm physically gonna walk into Portland.
So what did you tell, Paula, what was that question about ADUs and what?
Tiny homes that are hold on, tiny homes. Attorney, let's see.
So I just need someone to look over these notes because they're not great.
Oh, one that we had that you were supposed to look at is tiny homes that are rented. Could it be considered a campsite? And that was one that we had from our last meeting.
I don't have
That
that
we were
written
gonna
down.
look into that.
Tiny,
Alan, can you explain what the new rule was that the state passed on?
I can, hold on. Tiny home, say that again, Shannon?
Tiny homes that are rented, are they considered like a campsite? And we did have another question, but I think we just kind of figured that out on our own though.
I thought the law was for tiny homes for single.
Or
That the law-
ADUs.
that the law passed, the state passed.
Doesn't say that. It's another dwelling. Hold on, let me just stop this meeting.
Oh, the one thing too that you had to add is just that state definition of the tiny homes.
Oh, yes.
That needs to be on purpose.
That would be very nice. I don't know.
Yeah.
For this community, I think I'm gonna put those in